So, right-wing influencer Candace Owens has left the Daily Wire under a storm of accusations of anti-Semitism. Shall we take a look at some of her work?
So I was trying to reconcile the Jewish people that I grew up with and who I love with this sort of DC Jew who was using these words not because they believed that what they were hearing was actually anti-Semitism or Jew hating, but to basically silence people.
What if that is what is happening right now in Hollywood, if there is just a very small ring of specific people who are using the fact that they are Jewish to shield themselves from any criticism? A ring in Hollywood, also a ring potentially in DC, that we should start to ask those questions.
She's also, should say, been accused of liking a tweet that hinted that a rabbi drinks Christian blood, to add to that. Tom, what have you made of this? I mean, it's just the right going down the same old rabbit hole.
No, and she's not the only one on that kind of section. There's a sort of cranky, very online right who have gone down this particular path. I mean, it's grimly fascinating, isn't it? The way in which you have someone who is almost increasingly becoming, I don't know if radicalised is the right word, or this sort of bigotry creeping into the point where you're liking a tweet, as you say, which accuses quite a prominent rabbi of being drunk on Christian blood again. I think fascinatingly, Owens claimed that she hadn't read the whole tweet before she liked it, even though the tweet's about 12 words long. So I don't know how busy her schedule is. I mean, she's got a bit of form on this front. I mean, when Kanye West went on his kind of anti-Semitic tirades a few years ago, and he had that infamous tweet where he said that he's going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews. She basically defended it, tried to contextualise it, suggested that no honest person reading that particular tweet could think that it was anti-Semitic, had all kinds of convoluted reasons as to why that might be the case. But more recently, as you suggest, seemingly engaging in what looked to anyone like anti-Semitic tropes. I mean, if you're talking about rings and groups of powerful Jews in Washington, D.C. or Hollywood who are going out of their way to bring you down, to bring down critics of Israel, it's not a huge stretch to suggest that you're dealing and trading in some quite anti-Semitic ideas. But as I say, there's a section. It's not all of the kind of anti-woke, supposedly anti-woke, very online right who have gone down this kind of Israelophobic to increasingly anti-Semitic direction. But it's a significant contingent of them, and it really wouldn't surprise me if part of the story there is the fact that a lot of these influencers, including Candace Owens, who have become particularly kind of anti-Israel in that quite bigoted fashion, also have this very conspiratorial thing going on, and those two always go together grimly well, don't they?
Yeah, always, unfortunately. Luke, what have you made of it?
Well, I think Candace Owens is an example of a very mainstream, very widespread failure to understand the nature of anti-Semitism. Because I don't think she thinks she's anti-Semitic. That might be true. But nor do many people who say openly anti-Semitic things or who openly engage in anti-Semitic tropes. I was reminded about the Labour councillor, whose name you will remind me of, who who was sacked by the Labour Party for claiming that Israel had some involvement in October the 7th.
Oh yeah, Azhar Ali, was that it?
Yeah. So in the aftermath of that, in Labour trying to scrabble around and explain why they didn't immediately act, and they said that the comment that they thought for a while the comments might be anti-Israeli but not anti-Semitic, and it just shows that there is this failure amongst even very influential people in this country that anti-Semitism is insidious because it's conspiratorial. It creates ideas that Jews are somehow controlling things behind the scenes. All of these are very old tropes that have existed for a very long time. And people don't recognise them when they see them, whether that be here in the UK or in America with Candace Owens. So I think that people need to understand that anti-Semitism is different to other forms of racism in that it's often how it informs the way you speak about people. You know, Candace Owens talks about a ring, as Tom mentioned. She talks about, the DEFCON 5 thing, DEFCON 3 thing. It was about, it was about being defensive against some sort of invasion. That was what Kanye was saying. He was defending himself against the invasion of what he saw to be an insidious force. And these are all classically anti-Semitic tropes. And this widespread misunderstanding about what makes anti-Semitism different to other forms of racism, I think has been catastrophic and has led to a moment where we are experiencing, I think, a real resurgence in anti-Semitism. it is possible to be concerned about the actions of the Israeli government without spilling into anti-Semitism, but people discussing this issue frequently fail to make that distinction.
And it does also seem, for many of these people on the right who are, it seems odd for them to be concerned about civilian losses in Gaza when they're so openly pro-Russia or any of these other things, or just such, pose as ostentatiously anti-humanitarian in so many other contexts.
Well, exactly, and we talk about the Believe All Women stuff. The fact that Israelis have been called on to prove the fact that their citizens were raped on October the 7th repeatedly. So all of this is part of an anti-Semitic way of thinking about the world, that Jews are capable of appalling deceit, that they are out to manipulate people into believing a particular narrative in their favour. All of this is as old as Jewish people being in Europe. This has always been there, and it's a tragedy that it's showing its face again today.
And Tom, just on the sort of conspiratorial element of the new right or the online right, because anti-Jewish conspiracy theories aren't the beginning of this. I mean, we've had claims about a stolen election. Many of them are anti-vaxxers as well. There's just this claims about Taylor Swift even potentially being a government psyop orchestrated by Joe Biden. I mean, it just seems to be a sort of madness creeping in.
Absolutely. I think I'm right in saying that before she was officially canned by the Daily Wire, Candace Owens was going around suggesting that Brigitte Macron was a man, for instance. This is the sort of just day-to-day kind of engagement in mad theories and conspiracy theories, which has just become common coin amongst a certain section of the online right. And it's something which obviously has always provided the kindling for anti-Semitism. I mean, the conspiratorial component of anti-Semitism is one of the things that really distinguishes it, and one of the things that has given it such power historically. And one of the reasons, incidentally, while we're talking a lot about the right here, who obviously embrace conspiratorial thinking in a big way, but also you see reflected on the left as well, in the Israelophobic left, some of the people who figures like Candace Owens have become oddly friendly with in recent months because of the fact that it maps onto their quite conspiratorial view of the world, insofar as that, the system is basically a kind of plot by the 1% against the 99%. Doesn't take very long for that to fit quite neatly onto some of the old stereotypes about small rings or groups of Jews who are running world affairs, running the economy in their own interests and screwing everyone else. So really tackling the new anti-Semitism, or tackling anti-Semitism full stop, also means taking on the unreason and the irrationality that this new conspiracy theory culture has brought with us. Because it's really no surprise that we have seen that really bloom on the right in a horrendous way over recent years, that now we're also seeing anti-Semitism make its resurgence there as well.